This video is being brought to you by Cutting Edge Gamer. If you upgrade graphics cards often, Cutting Edge Gamer is the perfect option for you. Lease the newest graphics cards on the market, such as Nvidia's RTX 20 series, for a low monthly payment. Click the affiliate link below in the description to find out more.
So when it comes to next gen with the PlayStation 5, Sony is vowing to focus mostly on the hardcore and AAA gaming market. I have mixed feelings on this. Let's get into it.
Skip it up and that up.
So when it came to exclusive games for the 8th generation, I don't think even if you dislike Sony, you have to agree that when it comes to exclusives, Sony nailed it out of the park with the 8th gen console, the PlayStation 4. You have games like God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Uncharted 4. The list goes on and on and on. Sony really made an effort to make sure they had must-have games on their platform you couldn't play anywhere else. And that's part of the reason why the PlayStation 4 this generation was so successful. And when it comes to sales, it's top dog at the moment. Well, Sony wants to remain top dog, and they realize what kind of consumer wants to buy their consoles. So they want to make sure their games cater to that consumer. And that's why with the 9th generation, the PlayStation 5, their 9th gen console, they're going to focus on AAA and hardcore gamers. AAA games for hardcore gamers. Now, this doesn't mean that Sony's not going to still support indie titles. They realize they're important, but they're not going to showcase them as much. They want to make sure that third-party AAA games and big first-party games from their own studios are the ones that have the spotlight. Now, Sony also said that they don't see the Nintendo Switch as a threat to the PlayStation 5 or to the PlayStation brand because they feel it caters to a younger demographic, which I don't fully agree with, but okay. And this one I do agree with. They don't see Stadia as a threat. Don't worry, Sony, I think you're right with that one. Stadia isn't a threat. Games full price, internet in certain parts of the world are not ready for cloud gaming yet. Yeah, don't worry about Stadia. Now, why am I mixed on this approach from Sony? One of the things that I think it happened towards the end of the 7th generation of consoles, 360, PS3, and especially happened during the 8th generation, is there was a renaissance of independent games where we saw great titles from small indie studios, I think of like Super Meat Boy and Braid, so on and so forth, that really showed that you didn't need to have huge budgets to have really fun, really entertaining games. And I don't want to see those games pushed to the wayside again, because during the beginning of the 7th generation, it was like a walled garden trying to get independent games to get a spotlight on the 360 and PS3. And that's kind of, remember the Ouya? Well, of course, the Ouya is the most infamous failure, one of the most infamous failures in gaming history. The reason the Ouya at the time existed was because it was tough to get independent games on, consoles from Sony and Microsoft's consoles and Nintendo's as well. And that Ouya was the solution to that at the time. But then, like I said, towards the end of the 7th generation, right when the Ouya launched, Sony and Microsoft started embracing indie titles, and yeah, the Ouya, not only was it a piece of crap, it was now had no need. It was a worthless piece of crap, as you could play a bunch of indie games on the way more popular consoles that were out on the market. But there's great games that come from independent studios. And independent games, Sony, you can't have this mindset that they're just for casual gamers. Like, you're playing games on your phone, you download from the App Store or Google Play. For example, My Friend Pedro just came out for the Switch by Dead Toast Entertainment, and that game is phenomenal. It's like a 2D Max Payne meets Fear, and it's a lot of fun. There's great indie games out there that deserve an equal spotlight to these AAA games. And the innovation right now is coming from the indie developers, not from the AAA developers, where AAA games, a lot of them are getting stale. Where these indie games, you have these great titles that major studios or major publishers wouldn't take a risk on, that these indie studios, because they don't need the same amount of finances, can make these kind of games and be innovative. So I'm not saying to, just put the spotlight on indie games, but give it an equal spotlight. There's hardcore gamers out there, Sony, that love these independent games because they have just as much gameplay value for less money a lot of times as these AAA games do. So I wouldn't ignore, indie games. I understand Microsoft came out and tried to be super casual with the Xbox One because the original Kinect for the 360 was fairly successful and they thought that was the route to go. You don't want to go that route either, Sony, because that blew open Microsoft's face as well. Don't try to go all casual. But independent games are for hardcore gamers too. And there's a ton of them out there that are very innovative, very fun, and very affordable that may be just as appealing, if not more appealing to AAA gamers than AAA titles from major publishers and developers. Just keep that in mind as you go into the PS5 era. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.